For the best experience, put on headphones and write a comment, where you are from and what time you are watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe. My life was deeply affected by an event from my past that has haunted me for years. I often find myself revisiting that day, a day no one seemed to believe. It's taken me years to muster the courage to share this story with the world. It all began when I was around 14 years old. My family had just moved to a new city because my father received a better paying job offer. Within a week, we had sold our house and rented an apartment in our new city. The move happened in the summer, making it easier to start at a new school. When school began, I was a bundle of nerves, walking from our new home to the school, which was conveniently close. I hadn't had the chance to meet any of the local kids, and the idea of making new friends on my own was daunting. That morning, I was so shy that I barely spoke to anyone. I held my schedule with a trembling hand, trying to locate my first class. Math, in room 104. I examined the school map they had given me repeatedly, but the classroom numbers were blurred. With no staff around, panic started to set in. Where was I supposed to go? The school's floor plan showed a whole section on the right side of the building with numerous classrooms but no numbers. The left side of the building had room numbers ranging from 300 to 310, and the center had numbers from 200 to 230. I figured that my room, 104, should be somewhere on the right side. I walked down the long, empty hallways, as most of the other students had already found their classes. Looking back, I should have just asked for directions at the guidance office, but my shyness made me reluctant to seek help. Following the floor plan, I ended up in a long, eerily quiet corridor, blocked by some old wooden double doors that wouldn't open. It didn't feel right, as if this part of the building was off limits. I thought someone must have accidentally shut them, or perhaps I wasn't pushing hard enough. I pressed my shoulder against the doors, which finally scraped open. It was then I realized I had broken the rusted deadbolts on the other side. Mortified that I had damaged the door on my very first day, I was about to flee and find someone who could help me. Clearly, I was not supposed to be in this part of the school. The corridor was old and dusty, with open and unused lockers. The air smelled faintly of mildew. As I turned around, I noticed numbers painted on the glass of the doors along the hallway. The nearest door had 100 written on it. Confused, I checked my schedule again to ensure I had read the classroom number correctly. It clearly stated 104, which, by my calculations, should have been down this corridor. I began to walk slowly, peering into the windows of each classroom I passed. Room 100 was empty. 101 was empty. 102 was empty except for a plastic skeleton hanging in the corner with a pile of yellowed student robes. It made me wince. As I checked room 103, also empty, I heard the voice of a grown man coming from the room across the hall. Room 104. I glanced through the window. The room was full. But what I saw inside was not what I expected. There was a teacher dressed in a worn brown suit and a blue bow tie, and students sitting at old-fashioned wooden desks, all focused on him. What struck me was their attire. It was as if I had stepped into a scene from an old movie or TV show. The teacher was at the blackboard, covered in chalk dust. Despite this odd setting, I knocked on the door, assuming that the school had a limited budget. The teacher ignored my knock, so I quietly opened the door and stepped inside. None of the students turned to look at me, and neither did the teacher. I awkwardly apologized for being late and explained that I had gotten lost. Then I made my way to the only available seat and sat down, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. I thought I must have interrupted the lesson. After a few moments, the teacher began the lesson in a relaxed manner. His name was Mr. Telluri. He wrote equations on the board with chalk and asked the class to solve them. The lesson was pretty routine, though calculators weren't used. Whenever I'd raise my hand to answer a question, almost hoping to gain the teacher's favor, he ignored me and always chose another student to solve the problem. The lesson ended abruptly, what felt like hours later to me. By the end of it, I was bored and disheartened. I just wanted to go home and gripe about being ignored. When I left the room, I felt a pang of hunger. I looked at the clock and was shocked to realize the school day was over. A whole day of math. It was awful. I decided I hated this school. I walked home slowly, replaying the day's events in my mind. Everything had been very strange, but I thought I would eventually adjust to the new school. When I got home, my mom was on the phone looking confused. She saw me and frowned, appearing a bit angry. She asked whoever was on the other end to hold on, and then accused me of skipping school. Confusion ensued. I told her I had been in class all day, but apparently the school had called to say I hadn't been seen after picking up my schedule. I mentioned that I had been in Mr. Tillery's class in room 104 all day. I must have missed my registration due to being late. My mom paused and spoke to the school over the phone. After a moment, her expression froze, and she looked at me anxiously. She hung up and told me what the school had said. Mr. Tillery hadn't worked at the school for 38 years. Room 104 was part of an abandoned section of the school, which had not been used since a tragic event nearly 40 years ago. The school thought I was playing some kind of cruel prank. That night, I went online to verify what the school had told us. I quickly found archived newspaper articles about the school tragedy. A deranged man had entered the school with a hunting rifle and shot an entire class. He had blocked the doorway and killed everyone in the math class. An old, grainy photograph showed the classroom where the killings occurred. I recognized it immediately. Room 104. The obituary included words of gratitude for the deceased and pictures of the victims. I recognized them too. Mr. Tillery and all the students I had spent the day with. My heart felt as if it had stopped. I felt nauseous. At that moment, I was struck by an intense cold. After that day, I transferred to another school. Years later, I decided to share this account of what happened to me, something no one ever believed. Why now? Yesterday, I received a letter in the mail. It had no return address, just appeared in my mailbox. It was an invitation to a reunion signed by my old teacher, Mr. Tillery.